ballots have been cast, the die is set, but Alberta ain't ready to kneel just yet. They chose their king, their power was met, but we don't answer to Ottawa yet. No crown gave us what we've earned, just and lessons learned. Now the ground it shakes, the steel it groans, and Alberta walks alone. We ride sovereign steel through fire, through frost. We ain't the last, we're the line they lost. Alberta stands, never on its knees. A nation born in the forge of the free. From the rigs to the rails, the crops to the code, we lit their streets, we bore their load. They laughed at pride, they mocked the West, but freedom don't die, it just waits for the test. The cowboys ride, the farmers rise, 5 million strong under open skies. No leash, no lie, no foreign throne. This land is steel and it stands alone. We ride sovereign steel through fire, through frost. We ain't the last, we're the line they lost. Alberta stands, never on its knees. A nation born in the forge of the free. Kill the mountain, can't drown the plain, can't burn the spirit that won't be chained. He stares down east with a calloused hand and says, this time we draw the line in the land. We ride sovereign steel through fire, through frost. We ain't the last, we're the line they lost. Alberta stands, never on its knees. A nation born in the forge of the free.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to an event proudly brought to you by the Alberta Prosperity Project. Allow me to introduce myself. I'll be the MC for the evening, and my name is Glover Jackson. I'm a veteran of the Canadian Armed Forces, and I'm proud to be here today to represent the APP. And I'm here because I'm tired of living under a liberal dictatorship and a government that doesn't care for Alberta and doesn't know how to treat us. And that's why I'm here. I also am here because I want this to happen for the benefit of my family and my children and their future children as well. Now, before we begin, I would like to go over some housekeeping. Okay? So the bathrooms are located just outside that back door and to the left. The emergency exits, if anything does happen, will be out these two doors here, if that door is open, hopefully. If not, just that one little tiny door there, we'll all squeeze out of there. And then the exit to the outside is on the far left, or the entrance to the hotel that we came in. We also have a merchandise table set up in the back. And we encourage you to visit and learn how you can support the movement further. Hence, every voice, every action, and every Albertan supporter is vital to our mission and our cause. This evening will feature two experienced presenters sharing insight into our possible envisioned future for Alberta. Okay, we kindly ask for those of you that have any questions, there are question cards located at the back of the room. So if you have a question, you go to the back of the room, you get a question card, you can fill it out. Make sure you fill it out before these presentations are done. And then those questions will be brought forward, and then we'll have them answered by the presenters at the end of the speech. So no questions during the presentation. Further, no disruptions. We're here for respectful discussion and learning. If disruptions occur, we do reserve the right to ask those individuals to leave, in all fairness to our guests who are here and to you as well. Now, I'm going to read this out. This is the Alberta Prosperity Mission. So I'm going to read it verbatim. For those new to our movement, the Alberta Prosperity Project is a nonpartisan, not-for-profit educational society. Our mission is to educate, inspire, and advocate to all Albertans about the benefits of freedom and prosperity through independence. The movement began in May 2021 at a humble oil field shop in Nisku, Alberta, where a group of Albertans, tired of the inefficiencies of governing and the constant overreach from the federal government in Ottawa, it was decided the time to act was needed. Out of those humble beginnings, the Alberta Prosperity Project was born. And we are here today continuing with their efforts. Now, I'd like to open the mic up to Carlos for our opening prayer. Hey, Carlos.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we are gathered here today as thine children of Alberta. We have a heavy topic we wish to discuss as we look forward to the future. We ask for thine Spirit to bless the speakers, that they may be able to speak with thine voice. Many of us here have come with questions, concerns, and hopes. Please help us to be able to find answers to those questions. Although we have burdens upon us that we can currently bear, we seek to do what's best for our children, our grandchildren, and our posterity moving forward through the future. Help us to know and to come to know what thou would have us do with our land, our promised land of Alberta. And I say this in Jesus' name, amen.
Now, for our first presenter, I would like to invite to the podium Mrs. Kathy Flett. Born and raised in Alberta with a deep love for the province as a teenager, she was introduced to the Alberta Report, a moment that opened her eyes to perspective, and it planted the early seeds of independent thinking. In the fall of 2019, when the opportunity to do something finally came, Kathy jumped in with both feet. Now she's ready to share what she's learned and anyone curious about Alberta's path forward. We would like to welcome to the mic, Mrs. Flett.
Not very often I get called Mrs. Flett. That's pretty cool, actually. Thank you for that. Can I just take this off of here? Use this one? Okay. Okay. You're going to turn that on for me? Yeah. And now it's not on yet? We'll go with this one. I'll just learn to stand still. Okay, all right. I'll just learn to stand still. I'm not very good at that, but I will do it anyways. So yeah, with that rough little beginning, sorry about that. I am an Alberta girl, born and raised Northern Alberta by trade is usually how I like to describe it. I was born in Whitecourt only because Valley View didn't have a hospital yet. And then I grew up mostly in the Peace Country, in Peace River, and kind of bounced around there for a little bit. And then in my adult years brought me over to the other end of the Muskeg in Fort McMurray, where I spent next 19-ish years, 19, 20 years. That's where both my boys were born and raised. One is still up there. The other one is now down here near us. I live in Sherwood Park. He's in Fort Saskatchewan. And there's just something about growing up in this province that puts a fire in your belly for it. And I just don't know how else to explain it, except that I hear the same thing from others who have that same experience. And it's not that those who move here don't get it or don't understand it, but there's something about home. And as I was growing up, I was always interested in politics, oddly. It didn't make sense to me, but I remember at one point, I was probably about 7 or 8 years old, and I asked my dad, like, how do you become the prime minister? Because Trudeau Sr. was always on TV, and it was obvious that people around here didn't really like him. Even at a young age, you sensed that. You knew that something was wrong. You didn't know what it was, but you knew. And my dad said, well, you have to be a lawyer. And I'm in like grade 2, and it's already not going well. So I'm like, no, I don't. I'll just never be prime minister because if I make it to grade 12, that's going to be great. So there went that idea. But then as I continued to get a little bit older and a touch bit wiser about this, just life around me and how much politics affects our daily lives, I got angrier and angrier. It really began when I worked in the not-for-profit sector. When I was in McMurray, my job for 15 years almost was to help the hardest to house, to get off the streets, oftentimes for the first time. And we were challenged. That was a challenge, but let me tell you, the successes were beautiful to have a front row seat. I can tell you, all of those successes were despite the government, because all the government wanted to do was keep those people under thumb. It was very evident to me. So I thought, okay, I've got to figure out another way to do this, because that's not good enough, I don't think. Now, I'm not thinking government should get itself involved in any of that, obviously, because they just make a mess of it. So I thought, well, let's get into business. Maybe I can do something that way. So I've been a small business owner for a couple of decades almost now, and I discovered that, man, government likes to get in that business too. And then I really got mad. Like really mad, particularly the federal government likes to get in that business. So I thought, okay, well, now I know what it looks like from the not-for-profit sector side. I know what it looks like from the business side. I've always thought that Alberta should be its own province, though I could never really put to words what that might look like. And then the Wexit movement started. And I was like, oh, that's what it could look like. I can get together with this. So I jumped on board, in with both feet, with the Wexit movement. I was one of the ones that was on that stage in Edmonton and in Calgary and in Red Deer, and it fell apart as quickly as it came together. And I couldn't understand, like, well, what happened? We had lightning in a bottle. And I knew nothing about the inner workings of politics yet, but I was finding out, I was being baptized in fire, actually, is what that was like. I was finding out very, very fast how awful and dirty and yucky it is. So from there, my footsteps were taken to join a political party, a provincial political party, and all roads led to the Freedom Conservative Party, it was called at that time. You might remember the little blip on the radar where that existed. Well, then my learning curve continued. And from there, that party changed its name to the Wildrose Independence Party of Alberta. And my learning curve continued. And it got pretty ugly in a lot of different spots. And the greatest takeaway from all of that time that I got to spend behind the scenes trying to build this movement and build that party was that when people say that those of us in the independence movement, we tear each other down, that it's infighting all the time that takes it out, that's only half right. What actually happens is that the minute that our movement begins to gain any kind of traction at all, the forces that do not want to see it, and they're not just federal guys, they're global. that cannot stand the idea of Alberta being its own country. They find the low-hanging fruit in these movements, and then they pull it down from within. And that's why it looks like infighting. And then the ones that didn't want to see it happen, they can't tell it was them. Their hands are clean. So my dear friend Angela Tabak and I, we sat back because she was alongside me on this journey, and we said, man, we got to figure something out. Like, this is not working, and we're not getting any younger, so what are we going to do? And we sat down, we came up with an idea that, well, you know what? There are all these voices out there talking about the independence movement, and that's great. We need to support those voices, and maybe we need to be another voice in the independence movement, one that's got a more feminine side to it, a little bit of a softer side to it, that delivers the message in a different way. And so that's what we did. We came up with something as a means to deliver the message. It's the same information, sort of, a bit of more of a history lesson, I think, in mind. And what has happened is that we have all of these voices now talking about the independence movement, and it can't get taken down because it's not under one banner. So all of these folks that say, oh, you guys all got to get your crap together and get under one roof. No, we don't. That's the worst thing that could happen. We're all pulling the rope in the same direction. We're all giving you guys the same information. The difference this time is that those who want to see this movement die have got one hell of a game of whack-a-mole on their hands, right? Because there's too many of us. There's too many of us. And we all talk, like we do. We all talk. We all get along. We all, have coffee together, whatever. But we're just sort of staying in our own lanes, if you will, of delivering that message. And then we cross-pollinate. I'm here talking to you guys. It's just how it's working. It's working. The other thing that we learned in this movement is keep the politicians out of it. We have to keep the politicians out of it for right now. Their time is coming, but not yet. They're the damn ones that got us into this mess, for heaven's sakes. Why would we want them in it now, right? So, when people are getting angry at the premier, I like to always remind people, she's not the leader of an independence party. She was not voted in as the leader of an independence party. Let's leave her alone. The time will come when we'll put pressure on her, but that time is not yet. Right now, we've got to continue talking to our friends, our family, our neighbors without making enemies, being nice, being cordial, being polite, and letting people know our story and why we believe so strongly in the fact that Alberta needs to be an independent nation of our own. So part of what Angela and I have done to help people understand this is taken us back in time a little bit. We've got to go back in time, study the history, to find out where we are, how we got to the present, and then, of course, where that's going to take us in the future. So how did we get here? What happened? Oh, yeah, you did. You've got my settings set up somehow wrong on there. When you had to have, because it was perfect till you touched it, Max. I'm just saying. Oh, right. I don't know what you did, but you fixed it. You're redeemed. Right on. So how did we get here? Well, our problems actually go way back. Pre-1905 and us becoming... I can't stand sitting still, guys. This is just not working for me. There we go. Pre-1905, before we were even brought into Confederation, the people of the Northwest are allowed but a degree more control of their affairs than the serfs of Siberia. That's a powerful statement, isn't it? Well, let me tell you. Frank Oliver, downtown, Oliver Square? Named after this guy. He was the first publisher of Edmonton's newspaper and said that in 1885. We weren't even a province yet. However, the reason that he said Northwest is because we were a district in the province of the Northwest Territories. That's what it looked like at first, and we'll see that here in a second. This quote is very popular within the independence movement. We desire, every patriotic Canadian desires, that the great trade of the prairie goes to enrich our own people in the East, to build up the factories and the workshops of Eastern Canada, and to continue contribute in every way to its prosperity. That's what this province was built on. Minister of the Interior, Sir Clifford Sifton, said that in 1904. Folks, this is where Elbows Up began. So this is what the map of Canada looked like before we became a province within it. And as you can see, that light blue kind of purpley color, that is the province of the Northwest Territories. And then we've got the 2 territories of Alberta and Saskatchewan tucked in there. And at this time, we were being advertised all over the place as the last best West. We were the land of milk and honey. Come on, pack up the kids and get here. We got something for you. We're not going to tell you that there's nothing but snakes in the south and it is unbelievably cold in the north, but come anyway. And people did, predominantly from the US, but also from Europe, to escape some of the issues that were happening over there at the time. And of course they were told, here's a chunk of land, you got 3 years to do something with it, and if you don't, we're going to take it back. That was the deal. Well, it didn't take very long for the folks who came here to work hard, to make something of themselves, to have a fresh start, to realize that it's really hard to do that when your local government is in Regina. And Ottawa has been where Ottawa's always been. And there's no email and there's no texting yet. And nothing changed with Canada Post. That's all the same as it is today. So these guys, these businessmen, sat down with their lawyers and said, okay, we got to come up with an idea because we need some autonomy. That was the word they used. We need some autonomy over here in this last best West and some local representation. Sound familiar? So they threw some ideas out on the table, and finally one rose to the top. Let's create the province of Buffalo. And they took this idea to our premier at the time, whose name was Haltain. He was actually a really great guy. He was of all the premiers. He was a great premier. So they took this idea to him of becoming, let's take what, Alberta and Saskatchewan as we know them today, and create the province of Buffalo. Now, who remembers in 2019 the Buffalo Declaration that the 4 MPs came up with? This is the genesis of that. If you don't know about it, it's because nobody in the federal government wants you to know about it, and all 4 of the signatories were immediately backbenched, even though they were conservatives and trying to stand up for their province. That's how deep this goes. We used to have the Buffalo Party, right? The provincial Buffalo Party that is now the Republican Party of Alberta. That name, this is the genesis of it. So, okay, right on. This is what we're going to do. Haltain says, absolutely, this is great. Look at all this territory I have to deal with. Now I'm not going to have to deal with all of it anymore. Fantastic. And he took that idea where all great ideas go to die, and Ottawa said no. Absolutely not. Because heaven forbid you guys get stronger than us and the balance of power moved to the west. So what they did was they grabbed an eraser, a ruler, and a pencil, and they redrew the lines on that map and created Alberta and Saskatchewan. That's why we have the Alberta Act of 1905 and the Saskatchewan Act of 1905. We were legitimately colonized. There were no negotiations. Now, if we look at this is what Canada looked like in 1905 once they did that. Obviously, there's been some changes since then. You can tell that from looking at the boundaries, at the borders of each province. But we can have a look at this and see that Ontario and Quebec, the first 2, right, that started this up. Finally, the English and the French learned how to get along, and okay, so fine. We will be the Dominion of Canada with Ontario and Quebec. And then like bookends, they brought in New Brunswick. New Brunswick, they negotiated their way in. Manitoba, what little bit it was at that time, kind of negotiated their way in. Ottawa's still a little sore about the whole Louis Riel thing, but they got to negotiate their way in a little bit. British Columbia also did. Remember, that was so the U.S. didn't get them. U.S. wanted British Columbia, and the folks in Ottawa said, no, we want British Columbia. And now we're all wondering why, but anyway. The Maritimes also negotiated their way in, as did Newfoundland. Newfoundland was the last one in 1950. They held out a long time, negotiated their way in. Alberta and Saskatchewan, no. So when someone says to you from the east, well, this is what you negotiated, you can say, no, we didn't, actually. This is what we were told. And as Albertans, we're not very good at being told what to do. So it's time to do something about it. So how did this shake out now, right? I mean, let's be honest. That was 1905. It's been a minute since then. Maybe something has gotten better over the years. So when we look at our government and how it is, how the Westminster system works, how it's put together, we've got two houses in Parliament. We've got the upper chamber and the lower chamber, the Senate and the House of Commons. These are the seats in the upper chamber, the Senate. The sober second thought is what it's supposed to be. These seats are all appointed in the Senate. We don't vote them in. We in Alberta try, and it's taken as like, okay, maybe, but really they're not voted in. The Prime Minister gets to decide. So what do you notice about this? We see, the Western provinces each have 6, and then it goes 24, 24, 4, 10, 10, 6, and 1 on the 3 territories on the top. What do you notice about that? A little lopsided, don't you think? It's a little unbalanced. These numbers, by the way, they're set in stone. Now, they're constitutionally set. They don't change. Now, we can look at the Senate. We've looked at the Senate seats. Let's look at the House of Commons. So these are our MPs that we vote in every year that are supposed to do something amazing for us and hardly ever do. So we see that BC has 43. We've got 37. On and on and on it goes over to the east. And again, what do you notice about the numbers? It's a little imbalanced. Oh, but Kathy, it's representation by population. Suck it up, Buttercup. Isn't that what we hear? Well, let's check that out. Let's go first through the Senate seats. If we look at PEI, way over on the other side, almost 45,000 per senator. That's what it works out to, 45,000 people per senator. Newfoundland has just under 91,000 per senator. Quebec, 377,000 per senator. Manitoba, 299 per senator. And then there's Alberta. Over 800,000 for you in the back that can't see per person. Is that representation by population? Not even close. So let's see what about members of parliament. Maybe that's better. Let's check that out. PEI, same number. I'm going to get to that in a minute, why they have the same number of each one. Newfoundland, bit higher. Quebec, 116,000 per MP. Manitoba and Alberta has the highest number per MP at 132,000 people per representative. So how is this representation by population? It isn't. Nothing has changed under the sun. So I mentioned that Prince Edward Island has got the same amount. The Maritime provinces are all very close to the same amount of senators as they have MPs in the House of Commons, and the reason for that is the senatorial clause. When these Senate numbers were set in stone, they also decided in their infinite wisdom in Ottawa that no province could ever have fewer MPs than they do senators. So that's why Prince Edward Island will never have fewer than 4 MPs. They could have 8 people on that little island, and 4 of them would be MPs and the other 4 would be senators. That's the truth, right? And it's exactly that for the other maritime provinces as well. And we have been barking about this for a long time, decades in fact, that this needs to be changed. And yet, here we are, still imbalanced. Because this is a government system, this Westminster system we're under, it's like this by design. People say government's broken. No, It's working exactly like it's supposed to. It's a political problem, so it's going to require a political solution. And that's just the truth. So, we hear a lot of people saying, we need to open up the Constitution. Let's just open up the Constitution. Canadians are nice. They're nice. But let's open it up. I know they're going to make it fair for us. I can't tell you how often I actually hear this. They will, Kathy. It's not that bad in Central and Eastern Canada. Okay. Let's have a look at these numbers again. We're going to need 7 premiers and 50% of the population to agree to open up that Constitution. So which premiers are going to come with us on this idea? We're not getting 7, are we? We're probably not even going to get 50% of the population. Furthermore, I caution the folks who want to go down this road. What happens if we do open up the Constitution, and because we don't have the numbers, it gets worse? Do we really want to risk that? I don't. And I'm sure nobody else should either. In 1905, this little cartoon was published in a newspaper. It's the milch cow. It shows exactly what goes on, that the cow eats over here and the milk is taken out over there. And then somebody updated it and nothing has changed. It's all just the same. And we can go through decade after decade after decade naming all of the ways that we have been wronged. But the one example that most people miss is with equalization. None of us even knew what equalization was till Trudeau Jr. showed up. We were too busy working. I've often said dumbest thing that guy ever did was put us out of work because we don't do well sitting down. And so we started learning and we're like, holy shit, we pay a lot of money into this. What is going on here, right? Now suddenly it's a household word, equalization. Then we found out, wait a minute, how come 50% of our royalty revenue goes to Ottawa for them to do with whatever they want, yet we can't build a pipeline? Or we got to deal with cap and trade? Or our workers have to work longer before they can get EI than they do in the East? How is that even possible? But it is. However, it wasn't. Resource revenues were not included in the equalization formula until Harper was our prime minister. The West got in, and then to keep the Eastern votes, the West got ruined. That's what happened. So if Harper couldn't do it, Preston Manning couldn't do it, why do we keep trying? It doesn't make sense, does it? So we've determined that there's no sense opening the Constitution to try and get a better deal, whatever that means. Our next option is the Clarity Act. And sometimes the way people talk about it, it's not so clear. But it is. You need a clear question with a clear majority. Now that clear question right now is in front of a judge to see if it's constitutional or not. Which is kind of funny, in a sense, because the Clarity Act isn't actually in the Constitution. However, the Supreme Court of Canada came up with it. They're the ones who put it together. So it's legal to use. At the same time, I fully understand and appreciate why the folks at Elections Alberta are doing this. For those who don't know what they do, their job is to manage provincial elections, including referendums. This is such a big deal that if anything were to go wrong, the last thing they want is for that on their hands. So the legislation allows for them to take it before a judge, to call the question before a judge, and that's what they've done. Now, what's kind of funny about that is that it goes to the Court of Queen's Bench, which are all federally appointed judges, right? So that's going to be our first clue, actually, as to how this is all going to go down. So it's not a bad thing. It's really not a bad thing. And it gives us more time to go around and talk to people and help everybody understand why we need to do this and why they need to vote yes on that referendum. So really, some people are panicking about it. I think it's fine. What has me a little bit nervous is that the clear majority part of this is determined by the federal government. Now, they could be jerks. I mean, they are jerks, but they could be jerks and say, yeah, 80%. I don't know. I don't know, but they could. So we need to be ready for that. And if they decide to make this as hard as possible, well, then I guess we really know we need to dig in our heels and work harder at it. Because they're scared. They know that their milch cow is on the way out of the barn. Right? So we'll manage it, we'll deal with it, and we'll talk about that in a second. Another quick look at history. Ladies in the room, this one is for us. Do you guys know about Alberta's famous five? Not many do, and it's really sad that we were never taught about these ladies in school. These are our famous five right here, and they worked tirelessly, even pre us being confederated, to further women's rights in the province of Alberta. All of them are from here. And after decades of fighting, they were successful. And these were their accomplishments. So you could see Edwards, that's this lady here. She was the oldest. She was the trailblazer and took these other young ones under her wing. Emily Murphy, first female magistrate in Canada. Women were not allowed to do much of anything prior to that, but she fought to make it happen. McKinney, first woman elected to the legislature in 1917. McClung, she also was elected in 1921. And Parlby, she was elected as well in 1921 under the United Farmers Association. So when you go fill up at the UFA or you get your farming stuff there, that started out as a political party that she was the head of, and then got to sit in our legislature in downtown Edmonton. These women blazed a political trail for us by following the rules of the day and doing what needed to be done and standing up against all of the opposition that came their way, and my goodness, there was a ton. This lady here, she really has my heart. Her name is Roberta McAdams, and she was a nurse in the World War in 1917 during that election. And at that time, the legislature decided here in Alberta that there should be 2 representatives from the war in the ledge to make sure that the men and women serving overseas had representation here at home. And there was 20 who were allowed to run. And someone said to Roberta, well, you should run. And I wasn't there, obviously, but I imagine she probably looked at them a little bit sideways and then thought, oh, what the heck? Well, she won. She won. Her and another gentleman won. So she was actually the second woman to be brought into the legislature downtown Edmonton in 1917. But we still had a problem. Oh, no, wait a minute, we'll get to that. So they used the law to their advantage. They suffered, they ran, and their families suffered too, by the way. And then they won. They used the ballot box and the laws that were in place to get what they wanted. But there was still one problem, as I said a second ago. Women were still not seen as persons. Even though they were sitting in the ledge, and even though the one was working in higher parts of the law, we were chattel, according to the law, women were. And these ladies were like, nah, that's not working for us. This is not right. And the men were like, what do you mean? We gave you what you wanted. And the women were like, no, actually you didn't. And so back again they went. And went they did. These 5 all the way to see the folks in Buckingham Palace at the time to say, listen, we want to be persons under the law, not subject to whatever our husbands are allowed to do. And on October 28th, 1929, because of Albertan women, we became persons under the law. And we're here today. So why do I go on that rabbit trail? Well, I'll tell you one thing. It's not because I'm a feminist. I'm not. I go on that rabbit trail because, ladies, we got a lot of catching up to do. When we look at the polls within this independence movement, we're barely there. The men get it. But ladies, we look at things a little bit differently. See, and this is how I like to explain it when I'm in a smaller group setting, and I'll do it here too. Men and women, our brains are different. And all the men said, amen. Right? Our brains are different. Guys, you are like waffles, right? Every part of your life has a compartment, and you only focus on that compartment. No other compartment matters at the time. It's just that compartment. And if you can't manage whatever's in that compartment or fix it, you just smack it off and move on to the next one. That's what you do. So and it's not right, it's not wrong, it's just how you're wired. It's how God made you. And I think it's great. I think it's lovely. And so then when you see these political problems, you're like, yep, whack that off. Let's get that referendum going. Come on. Like, what is not to see? Okay. Now I need you to be patient with the ladies a little bit. Because when we walk through this is what women see. Women see a plate of spaghetti. And every one of those strands represents something in our life. One strand is you. The other strand is our children. Another strand is our community. Another strand is our church. Another strand is our job. Another strand are our parents. Another strand are our friends. You get that? And they're all intertwined. This is why we can have a conversation about 5 things all in one sentence, because that's how our brains work. And then when you throw in this independence meatball onto our spaghetti, we're scrambling because now we got to get the spaghetti back on the plate and incorporate the meatball. So women are going, okay, I get this here, but what about my kids? What about my pension? What about what is healthcare going to look like? What if my husband gets sick and I can't take care of him? What about my mortgage? What are the banks going to do? How does that work out? What dollar are we going to use? How am I going to mail something to my mom? Oh, well, we won't have Canada Post, so that'll be much easier. But this is the things we think about. And so, ladies, I'm here to tell you, it's all figure-outable. It's all figure-outable. And we have to, because I just showed you we can't fix it. It's completely impossible. We cannot fix it. It's working as it was designed. So the only option we have for our future, for our families, for our grandkids, for our great-grandkids, is this referendum on independence. And the unknown is scary, but my goodness, there's a whole bunch of us here. And we're going to help one another through. Nobody gets left behind. They just don't. And so when we're learning about this and when we're telling others about this, be gentle. Listen to their concerns. They're valid concerns. And if you don't have an answer, that's okay. Send them to the APP website. There's nothing but answers all over there. Google my name. You'll find a bunch of videos and whatnot of answers there too. And then what's beautiful is once we are independent, and this is the thing, right? We have that referendum next year. It passes with a clear majority that triggers negotiations. Then the work begins. Then eventually we become our own nation and things happen. Now, what's that going to look like? We're going to have our own pension. That's pretty cool. And already the Premier's talking about if we have an Alberta pension plan, why not bequeath whatever's left in it after you die to your beneficiaries? Right? Duh. That's just a no-brainer to me. Something else we could do, another social program that we don't have to give up. This is the thing. People go, oh my gosh, you're going to give up so much. Oh, you don't even know what you're talking about. If we decided to keep an unemployment insurance program. Let's call it what it is. You don't need insurance when you have a job. You need insurance when you don't, right? Unemployment insurance program. I don't care. We can have that. That's fine. The social nets, I'm fine with. But how many of you in this room, straw poll, have worked all your lives and barely collected any of it? Aren't you glad you supported the East with your hard-earned dollars? Because that's pretty much what you did. Now, wouldn't it make more sense, and we have a blank canvas, so there's no reason we can't do this. Wouldn't it make more sense that, okay, contribute to that, that's fine, but whatever you didn't use in your working years, you get that upon retirement. It's your money. That's something we could do. That is absolutely something we could do. So let's talk about healthcare. There's some room to move there, right? And the best part is the Canada Health Act wouldn't be holding us back like it does now, right? Now, kind of a sore topic because we've got some teachers on strike, but even education. We would be in control of that. We would 100% decide what our children are and are not going to learn in our schools. As I mentioned earlier, our resource revenue, our royalties, 50% of which goes to Ottawa, and people say, oh, you can't afford to go on your own, Alberta. We just got 100% raised. Yeah, we can. Right? If we didn't build one more pipeline, we'd be fine. We'd be just fine. We have the resources. We have the most amazing farmers that grow the best food. Right? The best. And if you want pineapples and bananas that bad, we could probably figure out how to grow them in a greenhouse somewhere. Like, everything can be done. It's not that scary. We just have to have the right people in place with the political will to fight back and do it. And that is why elections matter. Now, we've got one on Monday. Municipal elections. Too many people think municipal elections don't matter. I heard a story about 3 weeks ago, Jack Layton, when he was the leader of the NDP before he died, he finally got it through his head that the NDP had no shot at all of winning federally, and said, all right, we'll get him through the schools and the municipalities. And we slept right through it. It's time to turn that around. And there's an election on Monday to do that. So you've got a couple days yet to do your homework, to figure out who it is you want to vote for, and get out and vote. Don't stay home. My husband made the mistake of doing that one year, and every time he tried to talk politics, I was like, nope. You did not vote. You have no opinion. It's the longest 4 years of his life. But and maybe mine. But it matters, guys. And that's the thing. Politics is yucky. It's messy. There's a few of us that are ready to get in the trenches, support us, help us. We're ready to go. We want to do this for you. And we are going to get it done. We're going to get it done. And it's going to be okay.
Okay, looks like I'm holding it now. Okay, that was Ms. Flett. Let's all give her a hand for that informative presentation. That was outstanding. I'm just going to ask, is Chris Scott in the building? You are? Oh, great, okay. So I'd like to invite to the podium Chris Scott of the, the Stop CAF in Mira, Alberta. He is a courageous defender of the rights and freedoms of fellow Albertans. He has traveled across Canada in the name of freedom. He has sacrificed so much for the well-being of his family, friends, and for us fellow Albertans. So let's give him a warm welcome and welcome to the podium. Oh, you got your own thing?
Is it going to do the sound thing? Well, good evening, and thank you for that very warm welcome. It's always nice to see full rooms at Alberta Prosperity Project events. Since I've been doing speaking engagements with the APP, I've spoken to crowds of hundreds, and I've spoken to crowds of 6 or 7. And that's okay. That's the way this independence movement has always been. There's times when people are comfortable and they're happy to sit at home or go water skiing or do whatever. You know, things aren't affecting them so much. And then there's times where we watch something happen on TV, you know, just, I don't know, for example, like the election being called at the Manitoba border, and the rooms are full again. And as Kathy pointed out, this isn't a new thing. That quote that she gave you from Clifford Sifton, the Minister of the Interior in late 1800s to early 1900s, is foundational to this conversation. But I'm going to talk for a minute about what I believed Canada was when I was a kid and why I never bothered to get involved in anything political, certainly not an independence movement. When I was young, I'm 46 years old, so I started elementary school in 1980, would have been 1985 or so. Well, that was only 3 years after our Constitution and Charter Rights and Freedoms were repatriated. Canada was very excited about this. The general consensus across the country was that we are independent, we have rights, and this is the best country on earth. And we believed it, didn't we? I certainly did. I remember hearing about this in school. You are going to have the best life because you live in this country and you have these rights and nobody can take them away from you. They didn't mention Section 1 at the time, and I was too young to understand anyway. So I grew up believing that. And as I got older, I didn't really pay too much attention, but I caught whispers of things that were going on, things that the Mulroney government was doing. I was a little older when Jean Chrétien was prime minister, things that he was doing. The situation around I remember this, the situation around the contract given to, for the CF-18 maintenance. Manitoba was supposed to get it, they didn't, and instead Quebec did because they had to appease the East. These little things that now looking back, I didn't realize how significant they were at the time, but these were all pivotal moments in what would become Alberta's future, and possibly the West's future. So I grew up believing that this was the best place to be, the most free place. And millions of other people across the world did as well. They spent tens of thousands of dollars to get here. They worked their butts off to leave their countries and come here for freedom and prosperity and opportunity. Millions of them. Good, hard-working people. Because of what Canada was supposed to be. And I continued to believe that until 2020. Roughly 6 months after I decided to semi-retire from my oil field career and buy a restaurant so I would stop being so impacted by government policy. The irony. So I went through 2020 in the beginning, scared, like most people. Quickly, the fade quickly subsided into suspicion. Then came a little bit of anger, and then came the realization that the country wasn't what I thought it was. If the government could do what they did then, to somebody like me who just wanted to work hard, or someone like you, there's lots of people in this room who I've heard them share their stories with me, things that happened to them during that period, things that the government did, and it's horrendous. If that hadn't have happened, I would have continued to live under the illusion that everything was okay. I would have continued to spend my weekends at the lake or camping or riding dirt bikes or something like that instead of traveling all over the province and speaking at events like this. But once you see that, and more specifically, once you feel that, you cannot unsee it and you cannot unfeel it. And as you peel the layers back, trying to discover like even who you are in this country and where you stand and what your rights are and what the country actually is and what our government is and what opportunity there is for people to make a difference, the more layers you peel back, the more depressing it is. When I came to the realization that the government could do the things they did to us because of the way the Constitution is written, because of the way the Charter of Rights is written, I read every piece of legislation I could to try and save myself. I was hungry for knowledge because I had been impacted and I needed to fight for my survival. So I read legislation. Who in this room has bothered to read legislation or read a bill that's before Parliament? Very few of us. And yet these things impact our lives in every single way. You've heard people say, I don't want to get involved in politics. I don't want to have anything to do with it. Too bad. From the time you're born, actually from the time you're in the womb, nope. From the time you're conceived, actually no, to the situation leading up to your conception, politics is involved in your life. All through your whole life, until you die, and then for a little while longer after you die as well. So people like me who didn't want to get involved in politics because that's somebody else's job, I realized very, very quickly that politics was very involved in me. And if that's the case, if we fail to be involved and participate, we end up in a position where the government can send, can we call them, are we still calling them Gestapo? I don't. The government can send people to your business or to your home to arrest you or fine you for doing something like enjoying Christmas dinner with your mother. We find ourselves in a situation, and this is the one that really got me. This is what put me over the edge. This didn't happen to me, but I've heard so many people share these stories with me. We find ourselves in a situation where the government refuses to let you hold your mother's hand as she passes. Every time I think about this, I choke up. Can you imagine? Your mother's passing, and the government hands you an iPad, and they say, it's too dangerous for you and for your mother for you to hold her hand as she passes, so our compassionate response is to allow you the opportunity to say goodbye to your mother via iPad. That lit a fire in me that has never been lit before. If the government can interfere in something so sacred as that final moment with the person who loved you the most in your life, besides Jesus, they can do anything. And if that's the truth, there's another truth that's even more important. And that is, we must be the people who control what the government is allowed to do. And right now, as Kathy pointed out, we can't do that in Alberta. Alberta can take control of a few things that would make us much more sovereign and insulate us against a lot of federal overreach. We can take control of employment insurance, pensions, policing. What are the other ones? Immigration. Firearms is considered property, so yes, we could, but there's one more. I always forget about it. No, we already do education. Tax collection. Thank you, Max. Those 5 things. We could do that. Under the Constitution, we have jurisdiction in all those areas. The reason why we don't is because we didn't want to get involved, or it's easier to let the federal government do it. But the problem with doing that, the problem with abdicating your own sovereignty in these areas is that when the outcome isn't what you want for your future or your children's future or your grandchildren, you can't change it. Now, if we took control of all of those 5 things today, things would get a little bit better in Alberta, to be sure. But let's look at them, or a few of them. Let's take immigration, for instance. Right now, we have teachers striking because classroom sizes are too big. It's not that Alberta is having a ton of babies and we can't build infrastructure fast enough. We are also bringing a lot of people into the province. And it's not, I'm not talking about, asylum seekers, refugees, people that need our help. I'm talking about people that want to come here for prosperity. The people that are like us who want a better future. People want to come here because it's a good place to be. Alberta's a great place to be, whether you're international or from Canada. But they're coming here faster than we can manage. And now our teachers are suffering. Our healthcare is suffering. And the people that built the foundation of this province aren't often able to access that service. I was hit by a train a few years ago. You believe that? The whistle stop guy hit by a train. And I'm pretty sure I survived. And I'm also pretty sure I had some broken and smashed up ribs. Now, to make matters worse, I had a cold at the same time. So I was coughing with broken ribs. Whimpering in bed every single night. Just the worst, almost the worst thing ever. I sat in the ER for 6 hours in horrible pain, just wanting to know, am I gonna die? Am I gonna roll over and something's gonna do the thing where the thing breaks and then you're not a thing anymore? That's all I wanted to know. I didn't really want them to spend time. I wasn't looking for surgery or anything like that. I didn't get seen by a doctor. I left. That's right. And it's not because the doctors and nurses didn't want to help me. It's because they couldn't. There were too many people in there who were, bleeding or having heart attacks and strokes, which is strange. I don't know why I have so many of those. But there were people in distress that needed the help more than me. And so I left and just dealt with it, wondering, am I going to shift and have something poke that thing? I think it's the aorta. But my point is, I couldn't access the service. And it's not because the people providing the service are bad. They're fantastic. They're absolutely wonderful. Our healthcare professionals in this province are top-notch, amazing people. Our teachers, same thing. The problems in the schools aren't because the teachers aren't working hard. It's not because they don't love the kids and want the kids to succeed. I mean, granted, we do have some problems in education that we're trying to work through, some ideologies that we don't want in our schools that we're speaking out against, but that's not what I'm talking about at this point. What I'm talking about is the situations that have led to the problems we're experiencing in this province. So now the people that built the province, the people that drill for oil, and the people that they grow crops and they ranch and they invent things and they fix things and they contribute can no longer access these services. And it's really sad. And to make matters worse, these issues are often polarized and politicized for political gain, like what we're seeing right now. There's always a solution to these problems, but I feel like, and I know, that oftentimes the people that benefit from the problems that we have right now, they will fight tooth and nail to convince you that it's in your best interest that we continue with the problems and throw more money at it, because a lot of the money goes to them. And these are all things that happen because we take our hands off the wheel and we think somebody else is going to fix these problems. Now, if you zoom out and you look at this on a national level, we're in the midst of one of the stupidest trade wars that I have ever seen in my life. Our Prime Minister is telling Canadians, we're going to put our elbows up and we're going to fight the world's second largest economy, our best friend, our best trading partner, and we're going to make new trade deals and diversify. Oh my goodness. What does our Premier do? Our Premier says, okay, President Trump, you have some concerns. Your concerns are valid. Maybe they're a little bit dramatic because it's President Trump, but the concerns are valid nonetheless. So what are we going to do as good neighbors? Well, we're going to do our best to fix these problems. Our provincial government in Alberta is actually manifesting an independent Alberta by doing things that the federal government should be doing. Negotiating trade deals, doing trade trips to talk about trade, securing our border, those types of things. things the federal government isn't doing. And it would be great if we could just say, hey, we're going to send our MPs to Parliament, and we're going to tell them that we want to act like good neighbors, we want to fix these problems so that we can both prosper and continue to be good neighbors. But we can't do that. Kathy explained why we can't. The country is not broken. The Constitution is not broken. None of it is broken. It is operating exactly as it was intended to. When Clifford Sifton gave that speech in 1904, he meant what he said. We desire, and all Canadian patriots desire, that the great trade of the province enrich our lives, build up our factories, and contribute to our prosperity in every conceivable way. And we've seen that from then until now. The West has been treated as a resource colony. We had to sell our products only to the East and only buy implements from the East. Some of that stuff continues to this day. And none of those things have changed, except for in the rare case where somebody, just a normal, run-of-the-mill, everyday guy like me, or my friend Rick Strankman, do something to stand up against it. So Rick took a couple bags of grain to the United States, sold them, and was arrested, went to jail. And that's how we had reform in agriculture, and we got rid of the wheat board. Somebody had to make a sacrifice. I peeled the onion of the problems that we have back, and I kept looking, and I thought, if I just get a little bit deeper, I'll find the solution and we can fix everything. And I came to the conclusion that the only solution is an independent Alberta. And I went very public about that. We have a lot of I call them closet separatists. We have a lot of closet separatists in this province. People who know that we're being treated unfair. They've felt it for years. People who know that the only solution is an independent Alberta, but they don't speak up and they don't say anything because of this stigma that being a dirty separatist is taboo. Well, what's taboo about wanting control of our future? What's taboo about realizing that when you're part of a system that taxes you, governs you, makes laws for you to follow, and there is no way by which you can change those things, what do we call that kind of a system? Sorry, did you say democracy? Did anyone? It's an illusion of democracy. It's a facade. That is tyranny. And it's intentional because if you go back to that speech Clifford Sifton gave, what was our purpose? To enrich those in the East. Now, we've been doing that for a long time. We've been paying lots of tax, our equalization's unfair, all those things. The feds are blocking pipelines. We've been harping about this stuff since Harper, actually since before then, since Trudeau Sr. But it's only recently that we're filling rooms like this and putting almost 300,000 people on a database who intend to vote yes on the question of secession. Actually, it's probably going to be a no, because the question that's going to get there first is, do you agree that Alberta should remain in Canada? And I'm going to say no. What's changed? Are we paying more money? Well, a little bit if you account for inflation, because our dollar's tanking and our country is on a very steep decline. Our trajectory that we're on right now, it's not going anywhere good. And unfortunately, there's lots of examples, even from recent history, that show when a country is in this situation and your dollar does this and your government does this and your social policy does that, you go to a place where you're burning your money and eating zoo animals. We just saw that in Venezuela. I'll tell you a little story. I used to work in Colombia as a superintendent for an oil company down there. I flew into Bogota, where our main office was, and then I had to fly out of Bogota to, I can never say it right, Barranca Bermeja or Bucaramanga, one of the two. Either place that I flew, I had a 3-hour drive through the mountains to get to my field office. And very early on, I started noticing that there was people walking, like thousands of people. And this was every single shift. I'd fly in, get in the car, we'd drive, and then we'd be driving past like a huge, not a convoy, a huge, like a parade of people. And I said to my assistant, ¿Qué pasa, Francisco? And he said, boss, these are Venezuelans. they've been walking from Venezuela through Colombia, and most of them are on their way to Ecuador or Peru. Some went to Brazil, some stay in Colombia and Chile. And we had a conversation about what happened, and he explained to me, Venezuela, rich country, world-class healthcare, all sorts of great things, and government policy and lack of input from the people destroyed it. So then I saw this firsthand, and I'll never forget that. I'll never forget driving to work one morning. We had drivers, and I wasn't allowed to drive down there, although I did. And we get to the lease road, and the lease road, there's probably another 20 minutes of driving. It's just off the highway. And there's jungle cleared out. And there's tarps draped over sticks, and there's people living in these things. And then we drive a little farther, and there's chairs lining the side of the road with young girls sitting in them. You know what those young girls were doing? They were supporting their families, of which some were professionals, doctors, lawyers, veterinarians, because things had gotten that bad. Now, I use that as a very dramatic example of what could happen, with a very, very strong warning. If you think that it can't happen to you, or if you think that it won't happen to you, and you let that prevent you from being involved and making sure it doesn't happen, it will happen. Because those who want to prosper and profit off of your submission, they will not stop. Ever. So this isn't just Alberta needs to rise up and free itself from the shackles of a federal government that treats them like a resource colony and doesn't listen to them. This is more than that. Much more than that. We're experiencing something in this country. The federal government is pushing these things on us, and it's trickling down everywhere in our provincial government, our municipalities. They're pushing things that you need to do this for the greater good. You need to do this for the greater good. You need to do that for the greater good. It's early 1900s throughout to 1960 almost, where people were being told, you need to just do what the government says and you need to fall in line. It's for your own good. It's for the greater good. People were getting arrested by the millions for nothing and thinking we can just be polite and we'll just be more polite than the other people that are getting arrested and our sentence will be less. No, it wasn't. Millions of people died because people failed to stand up for themselves. In the late 1800s, my great-great-grandpa Strukoff, he was a farmer. And the Tsar, that man had wounds on his feet that didn't heal until the invention of penicillin. And the only reason he escaped Siberia was because the Tsar had a son and was so happy about it, he gave amnesty to all the political prisoners. And I'm not saying that type of thing is going to happen in Canada. I just want to give you an example of how bad things can get when people fail to act. Now, if you consider that maybe our future will be even 5% that bad in the future, do you think that it's appropriate to not act? Do you think it's appropriate to sit on our hands while other people get involved and take away our children's future? Do you think we should not speak up because we're scared that our neighbor is going to call us a dirty separatist? I don't. And there's been a toll, but it is worth it. Now, earlier in the evening, it was mentioned that there's question cards at the back. I'm probably pretty sure that some people have questions, so I'm going to ask a favor of any of the volunteers at the back. If you have a question right now, and I want it to be a question, not a statement. If you have a question or a challenge, anything that you think of that you can stump me on why Alberta should not be an independent nation unto itself, please write that question down and challenge me. I've found so far, in my experience doing this, every single challenge is an opportunity to turn it to a reason why Alberta needs to be independent. All paths lead to Alberta independence. All of the things you hear in the mainstream media and from special interest groups telling you why Alberta can't or shouldn't be an independent nation are all reasons why we should, and I will prove that. So if you have a question, if you have a challenge right now, I would like you to put up your hand and someone's going to come by, they're going to give you a pen and a paper, and I want you to write it down. And then when we get into the Q&A, I want you to challenge me with that question. Challenge Kathy with that question. And if I don't have the answer, I'll find it. But the goal tonight is that we're going to learn something. We're going to arm ourselves with knowledge so that when it comes time to have these conversations with our friends and our neighbors and family, we have the answers. And we can turn their challenges into reasons why this province needs to be independent. And I'll finish with this. I operate a business, I have a family, I have a very busy life, and it's all my fault. I'm not blaming anyone for that. I enjoy it. And I also enjoy the fight. I don't know if I mentioned this, but I'm Russian and I'm Irish. So can I be Russian right now? Is that okay? Okay. I'm just checking. But I took some time and I wrote an essay on Alberta independence. And I tried to catch all of the points, all of the challenges that people present to me. And I put it on paper. And I backed it up with facts. And I put citations and footnotes and the whole 9 yards. Actually, ChatGPT helped me with a lot of that. It's really good. But my point is, I did that because I want to make sure that there's something that you can look at. You can hold it, and you can read it, and you can gain the knowledge. It's on my website, www.whistlestoptruckstop.ca. I know it's kind of long. You got to scroll down, and then the blog is right there. Please check it out. There's a lot of information. And the other part of that is if you read that, as some have, and there's something that you disagree with, there's something that you think I've got it wrong, I want you to get a hold of me. Please use the contact form on my webpage. Get a hold of me and challenge me with your questions or comments. If we do these things together, we're going to find out very, very quickly, even in the face of a mainstream media that's not kind to us, and a federal government that's going to pull out all the stops to try and make us look crazy or traitors or all those things. We will find very quickly, if we start to have these conversations, that all paths lead to Alberta independence. Thank you.
Test. I've lost my mic again. Okay, we'd like to thank Chris Scott for coming to the podium and giving us that informative presentation. Thank you very much, Mr. Scott. We're going to move to the question and answer time right now. I have actually a lot of question cards here to go through, so we'll try to get through as many of them as possible. If we don't get to your question, we apologize. We'll ask the questions of our presenters. If they can't answer it, then I'm sure the answers will be on the Alberta Prosperity Project page as well. And hopefully I can read all the writing. Okay, first question. Oh my gosh. I'm gonna wait till all the questions come up here. We good? Right on. I'll just ask it and then if you answer, I'll just give you the mic, right? First question. Regarding the October 25th rally, will there be security present to the Prosperity or to thwart off subversion or violence? Yeah, alleged grounds will have security, and APP always has some form of security at their oppositions. And I'm not really afraid of a bunch of people with nose rings and pink hair, so we're good. All right? Yeah, that's right. As long as they keep their distance. Okay. Could an independent Alberta be worse than what we have in Canada? What could go wrong?
Kathy says no. I say yes, it could. How is that? Whoa, how is that? We've talked about all the things that an independent Alberta could be. It could be worse if we fail in our duty to be civically engaged and keep our thumb on the pulse of the nation of Alberta. If we stay involved and we participate in things like drafting a constitution by the people, for the people, that tells the government how they may interact with us, instead of what we have now where the government tells us what rights we have, this will be the freest and most prosperous nation on earth. I should have done these the opposite way because you always end on a good note. But the other side of it is, if we let our hands off the wheel and we let the other people who don't believe in freedom and prosperity build that new nation of Alberta, it'll be a cesspool. So it's all up to you.
Is there any talk of all the independence movements becoming unified? Is there any talk of all the independent movements becoming unified? So I think you're talking about Saskatchewan and Quebec and such, because they've been talking about it.
Oh, across the country? Is that what they mean? Parties? Okay, so is there any talk of the parties becoming unified? Depends on the day. Really, it does. It depends on the day. Sometimes they'll have memorandums of understanding. Sometimes they'll say, yes, okay, we'll run here, but you run there, things like that. At the end of the day, I don't think we need to worry too much about that. As long as the message is getting out, it's going to happen. The thing about the parties, and again, I hearken back to what I said earlier, that gives our haters a target when we do that. And if we bring all of those parties together under one banner, that's one big target. And we don't want that yet. On top of that, if we're all under one banner and I say something really dumb, then poor Chris is going to pay the price for that too, because we're under one banner, right? So this way, we still chat, like I said, we're still friends, and I love going to the Whistle Stop's good food, so go, right? But for right now, it just makes the most amount of sense, again, to leave the politics out of it and get the people motivated, the people going. So that's my answer. What's yours?
So just to add to that a little bit, remember what the Alberta Prosperity Project is. We're an educational society. Our job is to educate Albertans as to the merits and benefits of Alberta independence. That's what we're doing. The independence parties are doing a different thing. They're trying to get elected to the legislature to bring this conversation into the legislature. That's not what we're doing. We understand that, and we actually know this from history. My friend Corey Morgan does a great presentation on it. We know from history that the independence parties have never had any success in trying to get this done. It just isn't happening. Why is that? Because people don't know what to vote for yet. That's where we come in. That's our job. There has been some work. As a matter of fact, I brought a couple independence parties into a room in Red Deer. We had a conference there, and my thing was, listen, you guys, you're doing the same thing. You should merge and show people that you can be united towards this goal, and that will motivate people. And I really believe it would have, and they didn't do it. And the reason they didn't do it, it was down to splitting hairs over the timing of the referendum. One said we need to wait 3 years and do polls. The other said if we get elected, people want it, we need to do it right away. And so they wouldn't merge. So that told me, okay, this is like flogging a dead horse. It's not, I like horses. It's like flogging a dead horse. It's not going to get us anywhere. So we need to go back to what the APP roots are, and we need to do something that's never been done before, which is a massive educational campaign that gets people ready for the idea, and then the people have the power in their vote, in the form of referendum and stuff like that, and we can get it done regardless of the political games others play.
Will a new Alberta deed the reserved land to the, but I think you wrote residents. Yeah, First Nations, and dissolve the binds? He said binds, but yeah, treaties. It's basically a First Nation question. Will a new Alberta deed the reserved lands to the Indigenous people and dissolve the binds? Bans, and dissolve the bans. Okay, cool.
So this is something that's been really on my heart lately because I started reading the treaties. And has anybody read the treaties? Read them. Read the treaties. Alberta has treaties 6, 7, and 8, which are the major ones, 5, 10, and 11. Read them. It is very important. And then also, you have to read the context in which those treaties were created. But he mentions that time was of the essence in getting the negotiators to have the Indians sign the treaties before they realized the wealth of the land. So the treaties, I don't believe, were done in good faith. They were done incorrectly. The treaties right now say that all land in those treaty areas is permanently ceded to the province, everything, for all time. And they laid out some things that they were going to give in exchange. There was a medicine chest in every Indian agency on the reserves. It was territorial rights of hunting, fishing, and gathering on that treaty land, unless there was a settlement. And there was money. There was $25 per chief, $15 per headman, $5 per member, and in some treaties there was $12 per child. Now I want to point something out. Before those treaties were created, and I didn't know this until recently, there was no such thing as a chief. There was elders, and there was a governance structure that included everybody, but there were no chiefs. The Indian Act created the idea of chiefs and band councils as a way to mirror Parliament so that British Parliament could effectively control the native population of the land under the same governance structure that we were under. Now we're talking about a people who didn't understand that. They didn't govern like that. They didn't have a king. They didn't have a leader. They had elders that passed down generational knowledge through stories. They had no written language. So when the treaties were written, the negotiators recorded the treaty details, but now what we're hearing from some of the elders is that the oral stories handed down from their ancestors, some of them were there for the signing, they said that there was other stuff that wasn't written down. So those treaties, number one, were written in bad faith. Number two, weren't done correctly. And number three, they're not working anyway. Look at how it ended up. We ended up with the Indian Act, which is one of the most racist pieces of legislation that this country has ever seen, and it's done nothing good for any of the people that it affects. So, an independent Alberta, we don't need to say we're going to give you a medicine chest, example healthcare, in every Indian agency because we have that for everybody. We need to get past this idea that we need to segregate ourselves based on our ancestry and skin color. No, we're going to build hospitals for everybody so we can prosper together. No, we're not going to just give you all of the resources from this land. We're going to do the work together and we're going to prosper together. That's what an independent Alberta could be. But specifically, the question about the reserves, the federal government owns the reserves. The Indians do not. They don't own them. It's the federal government. So whether they choose to continue in the same treaty with the federal government that they already have and have the same problems, that's their choice. But I say that they should come with us to an independent Alberta where we can negotiate these things properly to the benefit of everyone and get rid of this idea that we're separate and start acknowledging that we're all human beings and we can prosper together.
If Alberta separates, the province will be landlocked. How could that affect us?
We're landlocked now. And who did it to us? Our own government. Our own government landlocked us, guys. So actually what's going to happen when we become our own country is we're going to unlock ourselves. Because now we've got negotiating power as a country, as a nation that we didn't have prior. And what does that mean? Well, that means that when anything comes off of the ports in BC and they want to get it to the rest of Canada, well, what country are they going to have to go through? Us. And if you don't want to play nice, well, that's all right. We won't either. Furthermore, who supplies pretty much all the diesel to that $1 trillion a year port? That'd be us. So we're going to unlock ourselves. It's really a non-issue. Not only that, we've got an excellent working relationship with the U.S. We'll figure it out. It's fine. It's not a problem.
I agree with everything Kathy said. I just want to point out, do you remember how I mentioned Venezuela? 72% or something of their country is coastline. Switzerland is landlocked, and they're doing fine. Canada is a signatory to the United Nations stuff, and one of the things the United Nations says is that you can't restrict access to tidal water for landlocked countries. So there's the landlocked conversation is a reason for an independent Alberta, because as Kathy said, then we can negotiate on our terms, which we can't do right now.
What will happen to those who are on CPP disability? Will they have to worry if we separate? Same for those on AISH. AISH, will they be affected?
Like I said, nobody gets left behind. Nobody. Our CPP will become an Alberta pension plan. And think about it this way. What if the federal government decides to be jerks and says, no, you're only getting in penny for penny what you've put in. That's it. Per capita, you're getting penny for penny what you put in. That's still a lot of money. We're a young population. So we're fine. To our senior citizens, you will not go without. You won't. We will make sure of it. To the folks on disability, same rules apply. You will not be left out in the cold. To the folks on AISH who just got clawed back $200 because of the federal government, who then tried to blame our provincial government, that's a thing of the past. And not only that, the money that you are receiving, that help that you're receiving from the rest of our tax dollars, because we're no longer tied to the Canadian dollar, your buying power just shot up as well. So no, everybody, it's just a non-starter, guys. Nobody gets left behind. We will make sure of that.
Do we have good examples of other countries going independent?
If you Google countries that claimed independence in the last 100 years, you'd be shocked at how many have done it. And we didn't know that they did it, but they just did. There's example after example after example of countries that did it with just the stroke of a pen. There was not a shot fired. There was nothing. So yeah, I encourage you on your own to go and to Google that and just see for yourselves how many in the last 100 years have become independent, and it's worked out very well.
I do need to point something out. I want to point out how lucky we are. We live in a country where we have the ability to do this lawfully, and we can speak about these things openly. Recently, Catalonia in Spain, their legislature actually voted and passed a bill to secede from Spain, and they were all arrested and thrown in jail. They don't have a constitutionally protected right to do that. We do. We're actually one of the last places on the planet that do. And if you want a great example of a split that went well, just Google Velvet Revolution. That's a great one. That's a great place to start.
Is there a list of talking points to use when canvassing neighbors for support? Oh, I can answer this. Yes, if you volunteer with the APP, they'll provide you with documentation and paper that you can use, and it answers all the hard questions. Sorry about that. Is there a target date for when the referendum question will be held?
No.
No. The best we have is May or June of next year, if the whole process goes well.
This next question is about if elections disapproves of the referendum question, what's next?
Then we write a new one.
This one's funny. My husband says, what happens to our finances after we run out of oil?
I love this question. I love this question. I spent 20 years in the Alberta oil patch and a little bit overseas. We are not running out of oil. The idea that we're running out of oil was something created as a marketing gimmick to make you pay more for oil. Plain and simple. It's estimated that Alberta right now, under current consumption, estimated increase, current production, has about 1,000 years of natural gas. You think we can't figure something out in 1,000 years? We have about the Tabasco oil sands, or the Bakken, or the Montney, or the Duvernay. There is oil and gas literally everywhere down the continent, both continents. And I mean, I've seen the reserve maps in Colombia, same thing. So no, we're not going to run out of oil. Not anytime soon. We might run out of patience with the federal government trying to keep our oil on the ground. We went down there and had that discussion because they're our largest trading partner. And when we declare independence, we're going to need help through a transitional period. So there's a few things we've asked for. Transitional loans and credit, because a new nation would have trouble with that. Transitional military support, so contract defense agreements, bilateral defense agreements while we build an Alberta military. Use of their currency, as 27 other countries they're already dollarized. So we're talking about these things, and we're preparing for these things to happen. So military, it's a great question. Alberta could have a fantastic military with strong, persevering Albertans. We could have a military that fights forest fires as well, just like the Army Corps of Engineers in the United States. But we're going to have to build it. So in the transition period, we'd have to get by with a little help from our friends. And our friends, they know we have oil, so they're very excited to help us through that.
I'm a little biased because I'm a veteran, but Alberta has the best troops in Canada, that's for sure. Yeah, we breed the best. So next question. Why does Yves Blanchette keep announcing that Quebec is an independent country? Last, may the Quebec government voted anonymously to cut all ties with the monarchy. How do we still have 72 Quebec seats in the Canadian House of Commons?
Well, because both the Liberals and the Conservatives need those seats. That's why. That's exactly why. And that's why Quebec can pretty much do whatever they want, because they hold the balance of power in the Senate and in the House of Commons. That was that picture that I showed you earlier. And so they do what they're going to do. And we're going to do what we're going to do. It's really just that simple. But that's why, because they know they hold the balance of power, and so they hold it over the country.
Can you please explain the benefits of the USA recognizing Alberta as an independent state? And does this mean we become a part of the USA?
First off, it doesn't mean we become part of the USA. It's in the wording. Recognize us as an independent state. Now, when they say state, they're meaning an area or a group or a nation. Read the first part of that again. That's really important.
Can you please explain the benefits of the USA recognizing Alberta?
There's one word in there that tells the whole story. Recognize. Recognition is the other half of the equation. If enough people in a country stand up through democracy and they say, we declare independence from this group that's governing us, we no longer want to be in this relationship. That's one thing. You also need recognition. The United States has said that if we do this lawfully and democratically, they will recognize an independent nation of Alberta. And that gives us the legitimacy that we need to move forward as a nation.
What will happen if we owe taxes to Ottawa before we separate? Will we still owe them, or will we owe it here?
I owe Ottawa a lot of taxes, but I'm a man of my word, so I will pay them because I choose to. Personally, that's what I would do.
I've seen the math. I'll have to dig it out again. It was sent to me in an email that actually Ottawa would owe us. We have paid in so much. We've paid in so much in equalization and personal tax and business tax and all the rest that they would actually owe us. Now, will that happen? No. But, you know, sometimes you got to just cut your losses so you can start fresh, and that's okay.
I don't think we'd have much losses, though. I'll take Banff, I'll take Jasper, I'll take the national parks, I'll take the military bases, and I'll take our pension, because we've contributed when adjusted for inflation, and the math is all in that essay I wrote, adjusted for inflation between $1.2 and $1.4 trillion since equalization was started. That's enough to buy everything here that Ottawa owns, and then some.
This will be the last question here. Yeah, this will be the last question. Upon Alberta independence, what is going to stop the federal government from taking over the country of Alberta with the military the very next day? I get asked this a lot on the road.
Albertans!
Yeah.
Albertans will prevent that. We have more guns in this province than the Canadian military does. And our friends in the US who have fancy airplanes and they know we have oil.
That's true. And something else, when I'm going around the province talking and people ask that military question, well, we don't have a military, what are we going to do? And I say something very similar to what Chris just said. I'm like, have you been to rural Alberta? I don't think we got anything to worry about. But furthermore, if you want to have a little bit of fun with somebody who asks you this question, toss it back to them and say, well, let's take a look at our military as it stands today. It is so underrepresented. It is so underfunded. It takes more courage to fly in those bucket of bolts than it does skill that they've been given to try and defend us with. And I'm pretty sure that if we were to just nicely invite the men and women in uniform who live here in Alberta at the various bases that we have to a meeting and say, listen, would you like to defend a country that will buy your shoes, make sure you have food when we send you overseas, make sure you have everything you need, including lodging and not some stupid little sleeping bag that's only good for -5? Would you be okay with making a decent paycheck instead of the little bits and pieces that you get now? And as an added bonus, we'll take the tampon dispensers out of the men's washroom. I'm pretty sure they'd badge over.
That's it for questions, yeah. Okay, I'm sorry, that's all the time we have for questions. So I thank to everyone who submitted a question. Oh wait, we got more questions.
How or when do we print or create our own sound money before 2027? Okay, well, hopefully you don't mean counterfeit, that you're going to print on your computer. Well, we can't. So long as we're part of this confederation, we're stuck with the Canadian dollar. So until we have everything in place to have our own Independence Day with parades all over the province that is now a country, we're stuck with what we've got. So we've got to get to that point so that we can have our own dollar, or maybe the American dollar, or whatever makes sense at that time.
I'm going to rapid fire this because we're running out of time. I also have this in that essay I wrote. It's a pretty detailed part of it, so please read it if you want to know more about this. Number one, we engage with the United States to dollarize immediately using United States currency, which is already available. It's strong. It's recognized all over the world. Number two, we immediately create an Alberta banking system, and we start printing our own money. But our money in Alberta, it cannot be something that politicians can change. It can't be something that has a sliding scale based on the ridiculous things that politicians do of the day. It has to be tied to something physical like oil or gold. We have a gold-backed, gold standard dollar in Alberta that will attract investment like no other place, and we have certain thresholds that we meet before we roll it out. Because like I said before, it's a digital age. There's all sorts of things like SWIFT and FAFT or whatever it is that we have to be able to participate in, but we have to have constitutional provisions to include these things and protect ourselves from the tyranny that can come with CBDCs. So number one, dollarize. Number two, build an Alberta dollar based on backed by gold. And number three, roll it out in stages so that we have a plan, but while we're building it, we can still trade on the international markets of the US dollar.
No, I'm really sorry. That's all the time we have for questions. So no more questions. Thank you. But thanks for all the questions. There's some really good ones in there, man. So concluding, I would like to thank our volunteers and our presenters who have given us their time for tonight. And I'd like to thank all of you for coming out today to this event to become informed. So thank you all. Oh, the rally on the 25th? Yeah, there's a rally on the 25th at the government building. I think it's from, what, 4 to 6. You guys know. Why am I telling you, man? You're already talking about it. But for the one person who didn't know, there it is. Yeah, so thank you all. Have a great night and drive safe. And we'd like to thank the Holiday Inns and Suites for allowing us to be here tonight. So thank you all. Have a good night. Oh, Days In. Have a good night.